Councilmember Guns.
Present.
Councilmember Willis.
Present.
Councilmember Gilliard. Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Khalid.
Present.
Councilmember Baker.
Present.
Also present is Mayor Edwards. City Manager, Mr. Donald. You have a quorum.
Okay, what you saw in the first item?
The first item for business today is council approval of amending the URA resolution and plan.
Who's speaking on this?
It was a item that the city attorney submitted.
Okay,
The next item is council approval of a resolution authorizing conveyance of 2 Old National Park parcels to South Fulton Development Authority with a quitclaim deed. Councilmember Baker.
you go ahead. Who's speaking?
I think that for something that's important, we need to wait for our city attorney. So I'm gonna make a motion for recess for 10 minutes, so that we can find out where our city attorney is.
Second. I would say to you, that's fine, but this meeting starts at 3 o'clock. She's our city attorney and she should have been here. But if you want to put that to a motion, you go right ahead.
We've got a motion in a second.
Okay, properly moved to second. Any discussion? All those in favor? That carries.
Thanks.
How long are we going to recess?
10 minutes.
She get here, it's a long time.
I said 10 minutes.
All right. Properly moved to second, discussion. All those in favor? Ms. Green, what about Ms.?
Ms. Rowell. Are you agreeing to motion to reconvene? Yes, she is.
All right, sound have it.
First item is council approval of amending URA resolution and plan. Councilmember Willis and Baker.
Mr. Mayor, we have some items that's missing out the URA. We don't see fire station 3, and then I think Councilmember Guns is saying she's missing some items as well.
Councilman Donald, you missing?
I just need some clarification if we remove Buddy Road from the URA on the other side of Buddy Road heading towards Atlanta.
Well, since our attorney is here, and maybe on the help, would you like to speak on the URA now? That's what we are.
So Mayor and Council, we have amended the URA a couple of times, and this amendment is to make it consistent with your most recent budget amendments and adoption. If you're comfortable with it as is, my recommendation is that you approve it tonight so we can move forward with securing the funding.
Okay, go ahead.
It's missing some items that we collectively agreed to include in the URA. One of the most noticeable things for me is Fire Station 3. Also, Roosevelt Highway.
Do you recall what specific it was in Fire Station 3?
Fire Station 3 is located on Stonewall Tail Road.
No, I mean, do you recall specifically what the
chief room is here, he can speak to. And Antonio as well as Public Works.
Because I did not recall seeing Fire Station 3 specifically in your budget amendment.
I think the chief room wants to come to make a statement. I'll get her, she's very good.
You're third in line.
Mr. Broom, is there anything specifically that you want to speak to?
We do have on the list of URAs, we do have up on there also, there was a list of other capital items that was approved. Fire Station 1, Fire Station 2, Fire Station 3, Fire Station 5, Fire Station 7, and Fire Station 13. All those were items that were approved under the capital listing that fell from the URA.
Did you say 3 was on there?
Yes,
So 3 is Roosevelt Highway,
3 is Stonewall too.
Stonewall Hill.
No, we don't.
So it's not a problem amending this to include it? I can put that on here.
No, when I said Roosevelt Highway, we had Roosevelt Highway as a blighted area.
Okay.
And when it was, I don't know, it got removed for some reason, inadvertent.
So Roosevelt Highway, is that gonna be redevelopment to the roads and right of way and, is that, we are not allowed to use these funds, but we do have funds that were allocated in the budget for transportation and road related purposes.
Okay.
Well, there is a new police precinct in that area.
Yes, on Campbell Drive.
Yeah, we can add it, I mean, there's flexibility here to add whatever's necessary. So we'll add Fire Station 3 as well as the
Campbell Drive, Roosevelt Highway.
precinct
Yes.
on Campbell Drive. Okay.
Do I need to just make what do I need to do?
Yeah, when you guys approve it, I'll make sure that language is included in the motion.
Okay. And I'll give you the, exact address and stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
So then is that,
Mr. Cleveland?
So that's Fire Station 3.
You got it, Mr. Cleveland.
You got it?
So the goal of this amendment was to make sure that our URA matched our budget amendment. So has someone from finance looked over this to make sure that they match? Because if we change this and they don't match, then we'll need to do another budget amendment to make it match the URA, is that correct?
That's correct.
So has someone from finance looked to be like, have you worked with anyone in finance, or has Mr. Malazi or anybody seen this and said, yes, these are all of the things and only the things?
So I know there's funding for Fire Station 3.
Okay.
Because Chief Rose just went through the list. Now, as far as the police precinct on Roosevelt, if you guys cap out with funding under other projects, there may not be sufficient funds left for that. I know that you have flexibility. Did you have in mind about how much that funding would encompass?
No, I just want to make sure that the list is matched. I don't want to have to do another budget amendment on the 10th because it turns out this list doesn't match that list. So I kind of thought, and I thought the whole point of this was to make them match.
Well, that is the whole point, but it's easier. So the Fire Station 3 it matches. That's consistent with what he just showed me. Now the police precinct on Roosevelt, it's always easier to include this in the plan and then just not fund it if funding is not available versus not included in the plan and then get the funds and then not have the ability to fund it if funding does open.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Jackson?
Can you tell me, I see Old Bill Cook Road, is that the, are we referencing the L, or we're talking about the condemnation?
Yeah, the Oak Bill Cook Road is going to consist of park and recreational acquisitions. There's some properties along Oak Bill Cook that have been previously identified as potentially suitable for recreation development.
Is that
Includes
what I was?
this. So these funds would be used to get appraisals, to negotiate purchase prices, etc.
But you're saying and fire station. I know we had identified X dollars, so I don't want and fire station.
The fire station, so there's no amount that's allocated to the descriptions. So even though you see the only reason the fire station is next to Old Bill Cook is because spatially and geographically they're within the same area. But there's no allocation of funding to the description. So your funding allocation is going to be based on what you committed to in the budget.
Okay, for the recreation facility.
Correct.
Good, all right. Ms. Rao?
Councilmember Brown?
Yes, I wanted to, I was gonna indicate in a list of projects, and I think a couple of people have talked about fires at that first listing, that we may wanna just keep it consistent under URA 2, to take that fire station and add them all together under URA 1. And then I forwarded pictures to Ms. Walker for Travel Pro and Stantown Park Reclusion for illustrative photos.
Okay. Ms. Gunn? Okay, Zach, Ms. Gunn?
So when did we, I guess, when you took out, I think you removed Vandiver Lakes and Button Road, did you notify anybody or let, because I didn't get any information saying that Button Road was removed and it's not in this. So there was half of Button Road that's going towards the city of Atlanta. Button Road is not in there.
So what I did with this is I reconciled it with your budget amendment. So whatever you guys approve within your budget amendment should appear here.
Okay, so in the last one, I don't remember you taking out Button Road.
And you don't see anything that in that area
nothing
that's depicted here?
No.
Chief, can I see the budget? Can I show you this, Councilwoman? So this is what you approved as far as the budget. So what you have here is reconciled. So just in case, to the extent you don't see it on that list, if you tell me specifically, I can always add it. And then if there's available funding, it's easier.
Well, I would like to Button Road because there's some parcels over there that there's an interest in. I think would be great for the city. But
did you see it on that list? Like, is it?
No, it's not on this list, but this has been updated several times. I don't know.
Correct. Okay, well, I'll make sure we add it. You said it's,
the Button Road, the side heading towards Atlanta.
okay.
Madam Attorney,
Yes.
for the sake of conversation in the record, I would like to offer that in a recent conversation to Mr. Ed Wall, the financial advisor, he told me that the list of submissions was far less than what was needed that he had. So I don't know, for that conversation, I don't know what he meant.
Okay.
But it sounds like it's turning different now. But that's what financial officer told me.
Okay. Thanks, ma'am.
Okay?
I move that we approve the URA with amendments.
And can I articulate those amendments?
Sure.
Sure, go ahead.
Subject to the amendments that we also include the police precinct on Roosevelt Road, Fire Station 3, Sandtown, the photos that were provided by Councilwoman Rao regarding Sandtown and Trumbull Pro, as well as improvements to Vandiver Road off Butner Road.
The only correction I would make is that the police precinct on Campbell Drive.
Yeah,
off
Campbell
Roosevelt.
Drive, off Roosevelt.
Campbell, okay.
So Vandiver Road is Butner Road.
Now, you know what, Councilwoman, is it just improvements to the road?
Butner Road, there's some parcels off of Butner Road on the other side of Atlanta that there's an interest in, possibly for fire stations or whatever.
Oh, so acquisition, property
Yes.
acquisitions, okay, got it.
But it's not Vandiver.
Okay.
Second. Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
Next item is council approval of a resolution authorizing conveyance of 2 Old National Park parcels to South Fulton Development Authority with quick claim deed.
Mr. Baker?
Yes, I'm going to have our attorney speak to this, but this is a project that Mr. Pike brought our way on Old National, where we have a letter of intent up to $350 million to build on Old National, starting with the Hyatt Place Hotel in the mixed-use development, something similar to that of Atlantic Station type of development on Old National. And I believe the process is our city attorney can speak to the process.
Madam Clerk, go ahead.
So what I've presented to the council is a IGA for the council to consider. And it's with respect to the conveyance to the South Fulton Development Authority of 2 undeveloped parcels. There are 4 parcels that comprise Old National Park that we acquired from Fulton County during transition. There are 2 that are developed and they constitute the park space, the fields, etc. There's approximately 64 acres of undeveloped property, and that's what would be conveyed if you approve to the Development Authority. Now, I've circulated an agreement which would put limitations. It would require that the Development Authority use the property for particular purposes, which include their authorizations under the Development Authority's law. It would also require that they have certain milestones that are completed with respect to the progress of the project, which includes the timeline that I have here are 2 timelines. The first is they would have to commence development within 3 years. You can extend or shorten that, and then they would have to complete the project within 6 years, and you could extend or shorten that. That's one option to adopt this contemporaneous with the conveyance of the 2 parcels. If they didn't meet those standards, then the city would have the option to request or demand that the property come back to the city.
This document, is this the first time you passed it out?
Correct.
Let me just say this. I don't like to, what do you mean? I don't like to make haste decisions on document that's passed out at a meeting when you're talking about taxpayers' land. That's the first thing, because we have to be good steward of taxpayers' land. The second thing is, I don't know just generally what this project is about. And I love Old National Highway, don't get me wrong, you know, but I don't know what the project is really about. So I would convey taxpayers' land to an entity for a project that I don't know nothing about. Here's the third thing. A letter of intent is a letter of intent. If I was to do this, what I would do is give another letter of intent back. And the letter of intent would be, you have the land when you show us that you're ready to do something. Okay? The other thing too is that if in fact, I haven't read this, but if in fact there's no conveyance in here that says something that if the Development Authority were to actually sell the property, so they would do an open bid, I would put that in there. Okay? But right now, I'm just saying, I'm just not against it, but it just does not enough facts for to convey taxpayers' property, you know, over 2 acres. And a letter of $300 million intent is just what it is. It is a letter of intent. So that's just my take. Mr. Jones, and then Mr.
So, I guess my first question is, do we have any renderings of what this project is going to look like? Anybody? Mr. Pike?
Actually,
City Attorney?
Actually, yes. Yesterday's Development Authority meeting, the developer couldn't get a flight, he was ill, but he just did a description of it. But in our next meeting, there'll be renderings.
Okay. And also too, have they had considerable community input in regards to this project? Have they met with the community? Talked about this development with the community? Other than the Development Authority?
The developers have met with each council member in that corridor in reference to the project, and they have organized community input meetings at World Changes that are to follow to get suggestions on what they like to see in said development.
Have they already started those community meetings?
No, that would be ambitious to do that without this going forward.
Okay, so my next...
And just so you know, I mean, a correction to what the mayor said, this was actually disseminated in our last council meeting, but we held it.
And they have not.
I mean, this is the one, I mean, I passed it out to you.
And they have not come to the council meeting to present a work session, correct? They just came to the development authority.
Correct.
Okay.
Ms. Jackson? Ma'am? Okay, Ms. Rao?
I kind of want to piggyback on something that Councilwoman Guns indicated as it relates to, one, the community input. I know I've heard from some residents from the Old National Corridor that they were not aware that parkland is going to be converted for this purpose. So I think it's really important that we hear those voices in this process because they were not aware. I don't know if other council members have been contacted regarding this, but that was area of concern. I need to read the emails and several calls.
Okay. Mr. Khalid? I'm sorry. Are you finished, Ms. Rao?
Are you through, Ms. Rao?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Mr.
please.
To this discussion. And just clarifying one thing, I did have an opportunity to watch the Development Authority meeting. Is it correct that right now, while they have preliminary financing in place, they don't have the commitment to the anchor tenant? One of the things I did hear, and I'd like somebody to address this question, how high can we go on Old National in terms of stories?
I can address that.
Okay, Mr. Khalid, you want to address that?
Yes, so first of all, I want to say this property is in District 6. It's not my district, it is the district I represent. It belongs to the people of District 6. And they are very excited about it. This is actually the first time, Dr. Rao, we have each other's phone numbers, and this is the first time that I'm hearing that people from my district are calling you. I didn't get a call from you saying that people in my district had concerns. So this is the first time that I'm hearing that. But everyone that I've talked to on Old National is excited about it. We did receive this IGA 2 weeks ago now, or a week ago in our last meeting, and the developers have come to several meetings of the Development Authority, to our city's Development Authority, and those meetings are public and they are published and their agendas are published. So I think in many ways this process has been much more transparent than some of the others that we will be talking about tonight. I do also want to give special thanks to Rosie Jackson, Councilwoman Jackson, because they were actually here meeting, these developers were actually here meeting about another project in another area of the city. And Councilwoman Jackson said, you all need to come and see Old National. And so we would not even be this far along without her efforts. I do want to thank you for that. Lastly, I will say, I have been pushing for a rewrite of our zoning laws. Right now, we actually can build over 4 stories. Nowhere in our city is any parcel of land zoned to be built over 4 stories. However, our zoning law does say that height restrictions can be waived by a vote of council. So in theory, any parcel can go to any height if it were agreed to by council. But we are looking at creating a formal designation for buildings taller than 4 stories, and we will be talking about that in the coming months in our zoning public hearings, which will be public, and which will there'll be feedback for people to comment on this and other projects on Old National. So I want to thank my colleague Councilman Jackson and Councilman Baker for helping to bring this to fruition, and I am in full support of this project as the representative of the district where it is. And so I'm going to make a motion to go ahead and approve this intergovernmental agreement.
Second.
And I would ask for authority to further negotiate, to make non-substantive changes with the city manager as far as execution of the final document.
So I'll make a motion to approve this providing our council with authority to make non-substantive changes or negotiate non-substantive changes.
Is it this the document you're talking about?
Well, I'm asking is, I think you're referring to the attorney as far as counsel?
Yes.
Oh, got it.
Okay, so in collaboration with the city manager, is that, because I did want to talk to staff about that. Well, so you can keep, so say your motion again?
You tell me what you need.
I
My
think-
motion
I
is
think
to
your
approve
motion
this
is
document.
fine.
Do I need to amend this
So I
motion to
guess
do anything else?
if the clerk is clear that he's talking about counsel, legal counsel versus the mayor and council.
Yes, I'm talking about legal counsel.
So I think we're good with what you have as stated.
Second.
That's one and the same. Isn't it? But anyway, are you talking about this document?
I'm talking about counsel, C-O-U-N-S-E-L, not C-O-U-N-C-I-L.
Okay, correct.
So,
I asked the question again, are we talking about this document?
My understanding is that he's talking about the IGA, which would still be subject, once you approve it, would still be subject
Ms.
to.
Colleen, is that your understanding?
Yes.
But wait, is that also the actual deed to the property?
No, that's a separate
That's a separate-
document you would have to approve once you approve this.
The second.
Properly moved to second.
so,
Discussion. Go right ahead.
just so I'm clear, this is how many parcels?
2,
And the city is giving these parcels over to these gentlemen? What is happening here? Because this is just, I'm getting this all at the last minute, so please forgive me. I've looked at the Development Authority meetings and again, like I said, there wasn't that many in attendance, so I don't know how much community input has been yielded. But what is the city's responsibility in this?
so the bigger picture is that you would be giving these parcels to the Development Authority. They would be authorized to use the parcels for any purpose that's permissible under the Development Authorities Act, which is basically for the promotion of economic development, tourism, industry, commerce. If they did not use these parcels for that specific purpose within 3 years, meaning that if construction doesn't commence within 3 years, then you would have the right to have the parcels returned to the city. And if they don't complete whatever project they commence within 6 years, then you would also have that right.
This is,
You can speak, I'll yield to Councilman Khalid.
so this is one of the advantages of having a city development authority, all of whose members are city residents. We are deeding the property over to a development authority of city residents to help build the second hotel ever in our city, the first high-rise hotel ever in our city. And city residents will oversee the development and work to make sure that it is something that people in this city are interested in having. And so that is what we're doing. We as a city are deeding, we as the city are deeding city land over to a development authority that is controlled by city residents for economic development in our city.
So back again to what I was saying, and this may fit into the strategic economic development plan that we have not seen yet, but where's the community input in regards to this? I hear what you're saying about, city residents, but is that compiled of all of District 6? Or is it all of the city of South Fulton? Because the city of South Fulton is gonna have to be the ones that help support this development at the end of the day, not just the residents in District 6.
So
You're making a statement. You're just making a statement.
Go ahead.
Are you yielding?
I'll yield.
So
Councilman Khalid.
Go ahead.
one second.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna ask Mr. Wall, our financial advisor, if he could come and just give a little bit more clarity about this process, because it is not my understanding, unlike the URA, which are government obligated bonds that are backed by tax dollars, these municipal bonds might be backed by private dollars,
Yes, sir, that's
which are
right.
not taxpayer dollars. And that is one of the advantages of having a DA. But for those who are confused and haven't attended any of the Development Authority meetings, I would ask if you could just elaborate.
I'm not confused.
So Development Authorities act as a conduit for-profit private companies. And there are two ways that you can, Development Authority issue bonds for a for-profit private company. One is a tax-exempt bond issue if they're manufacturing, or say they were a hotel and they wanted to run their financing through the Development Authority. The Development Authority nor the City of South Fulton would be responsible for any of the debt. They would be using the Development Authority, what we call a conduit. The other reason to issue debt through Development Authority is tax abatement. And in that, they call it a phantom bond, where no real money exchanges hands, but you have to have title to the property in the name of the Development Authority to make it exempt from property taxes.
So, in layman's terms, what I understand about this Development Authority is, in the same way if you are an individual and then you set up an LLC or an incorporation, you can go after that corporation, but you can't go after me as an individual. So by doing this deal through the Development Authority, if anything goes wrong, they can go after the Development Authority, but they actually cannot go after the city.
Correct, and the Development Authority in the documents would force the company, whoever it was, to indemnify the Development Authority so that they couldn't go after the Development Authority. They'd indemnify the Development Authority against all actions.
Thank you.
But
Go ahead, you still have a vote.
I'm just trying to figure out if we got community input, because I am concerned about putting these properties, stuff on Old National, and we don't have the base to support it. And I haven't seen not one rendering. That's all I'm asking for, is like, where's community input in the renderings? And we're ready to go ahead and sign off on something?
This one over. What is the value of the property, or the appraised value of the property that you want?
You got,
Do you know? Does anybody know what the appraised value of the property is sitting over there?
No, this property has not been appraised. That would be part of, so it would depend on the structure of the agreement. If the Development Authority entered into a lease, then it would just be the commercial value of a lease of this size. If the Development Authority decides to sell the property, then at that point, we would have appraisers come in and give an appraised value, and then that would be part of the facilitated deal with the
so
developer.
we don't know appraised value right now.
No, not at this point.
I'm trying
Okay,
to
so,
recognize you now.
I got you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
So just back to her, to what she's saying. You gotta have enough facts to do something like this. And I'm for this. I mean, God bless everybody who's involved with this. I think it's a great thing. But I don't know what the land's gonna cost, what the value of the land for the city is. I'm giving it over to the Development Association. I just got an intergovernmental agreement that I have an issue with already. I'm for it. And if you can just we can do it in a manner in which we can give an intent to convey while we get the rest of this stuff worked out. That makes sense. I'm not against it. It just makes sense. Because how many times have we come up here and people come to us and say, well, I didn't know about it. I did not know. Mr. Khalid, everybody in his district probably know about it. All right, and I got no problem with that. But the tax money that's based on this property is paid by all the citizens of this city. And so we have to take that into consideration. And I wish all of you would, before you make this decision, that you take all that into consideration. Let's do the deal. Let's do the deal, but let's do it right. Mr. Baker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your input. I just wanted to say this. I did make the point of reaching out to the Old National Merchants Association in regards to this project, intentionally, because I understand that Reverend Smith, who owns the office where those meetings are held, has a rapport with World Changes, which is the largest church in our city. And Pastor Dollar has received proclamation from this city, and they've been partners with this city on several events, and they're welcoming to hosting full community input events. They've already been connected with this developer. They're in the process of scheduling these events, and these events will be visioning sessions for the things, the things that the people want, that the residents want to see in the mixed-use development outside of the hotel. So I believe that there was a consensus that it's okay to build this hotel, but what's going to be in this mixed-use development? And that's what these developers are doing, unlike many developers who come here and tell us what they're going to put in our area. So I think that this is a great opportunity. They're doing something grand in District 4, in the Cedar Grove area, where they're doing the same sessions. I've been to one of them with the Cliftondale and Cedar Grove community. So this is a different type of process that we've never had with developers who are willing to allow this type of community input. And I'd like to call the previous question.
Second. Properly moved and second to call the previous question. Any discussion? Let me remind us that what's on the agenda is a resolution, not the IGA. Is there any reason why we passed the IGA?
Well, the IGA is authorizing you to adopt the resolution in a sense. So the IGA says that we're going to convey the property, and the resolution is the physical act of conveyance.
So should we have put the IGA on the agenda?
No, you just have to put the topic on the agenda, which is the conveyance of the property.
You're asking for a vote, aren't you?
Yes, you would be required to approve this by vote.
So let me make sure I'm clear. The IGA starts the deal, but it's not on the agenda. But what's on the agenda is the resolution conveying deeds. So I'm a little confused.
So when you have a special meeting, you're limited to the topics that were noticed in the call. So you can do anything within the confines of this topic.
I'm going to respectfully disagree, but I'm going to deal with what's on this agenda. And what's on this agenda is an approval of a quitclaim deed. Now you're saying that since it's all out there, it's a wide variety of things, we can throw anything in we want to. That's what I'm hearing you say. Procedurally, I just want to know that we're on the right track.
It's the topic.
So procedurally, you're fine. I have the charter section I'll refer you to.
Actually, the resolution is in our packet.
So I think for the mayor, I think he wants to be a little bit more comfortable that you're okay with proceeding with this. So I'll just read to him the language just so he can make an informed decision.
Yes.
Yeah, I almost have it. If you give me about 30 more seconds. Okay, I have it. So it says,
Give me the numbers, too.
subsection 313.
Okay.
And it says, it said only the business stated in the call may be transacted at the special meeting, which means that you're confined to discussion on the topics that you put in the call when you called the meeting.
I'm clear about that. I'm clear about that. And what's on this thing is request approval of a resolution authorizing conveyance of 2 Old National Parcels to South Fulton with a quitclaim deed. Now we're talking, the other issue on here is about the IGA.
For that same premise.
For the same in the business.
But then she said that before we can go forward with that, we have to approve the IGA to get what we want to do on this deal. That's what I heard you say. So procedurally, then the IGA should have been on here, and then the other thing should have been consistent with that.
So you don't have to specifically put all the documents that are as part of this discussion on the agenda. Like, for example, you don't have to enumerate everything, but the discussion that you were having has to be confined to that particular topic.
Okay, I respectfully disagree, but we can move on. Where are we? We're in the discussion period?
Call the question, motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
It's been motion by Councilmember Khalid, second by
Probably
Councilmember
moved,
Baker.
I thought we had done, but we discussed.
For previous question.
Yeah, we're in
On the
discussion.
previous question, okay. All those in favor? Previous question? That's 4, 5.
So now,
Call the previous question.
I move to approve this IGA with the amendments requested by council.
Second.
discussion.
Discussion. Ms. Rowell, did you want to say something?
Well, you already voted, but one thing I just want to say is I think just like we have zoning cases and we have a basic level of question information we should have for this.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have discussion.
Ms. Khalid and then Ms. Gunn.
Councilman Baker said to me he's never seen anything like this in his life. But I have. And it was when we were doing the DDA for Old National. Somebody said, oh my God, there's eye rolls. The abundance of caution and the attention to detail around procedure that is paid when we are doing things on Old National is astounding. We've gone after buildings and developments in other places. You'll hear about some of them on the 10th. We don't even know if we have the maintenance budget to take care of them. But when it's Old National, there is all this discussion. Maybe that's why 20 years on, we still don't have sidewalks going down the street. So I just wanted to point that out to the people in the room. I want you to see this pattern that happens when it's time to develop Old National. And maybe that's why Old National doesn't get developed. But it's going to get developed today.
Okay, Ms. Willis.
No.
Ms. Guns, I'm sorry.
So I can say that I respectfully disagree with Councilman Khalid. This is one of the issues that we have as far as our city being so segregated in regards to you pointing out that we're taking extra caution on Old National. What we're trying to do is not go through the same process we went through with the URA and always amending it every 5 minutes. And my purpose is because it's not just going to be Old National who supports this development. So if we can stop living in a bubble of where everybody is just about all of what's in their district, yes, look at me like that, it's fine. I'm just tired of the segregation, and for you all to say that people are taking extra precaution just for Old National is out of pocket because it's one city. So my question is to the city attorney, will we have the value of this land and renderings by the time we get the final, whatever this thing is that we're voting on?
So when you give this over to the Development Authority, they are a separate organization, which means that they would have to come back to the city for as far as planning and zoning, permitting, construction requirements.
And we don't have a timeline as of right now when this project, I heard 3 years and something.
Well, they would have to complete all of that within 3 years because they have to commence construction within that date. So they would have to come through and get the appropriate approvals within 3 years. But when you do give this to the Development Authority, I just want to make sure that you're aware that you are giving them the ability to facilitate and control the project to the extent that it's not required to go through city processes such as permitting and other processes that are under the purview of the city.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Gunn.
And can I clarify his motion for the city clerk? Because it was a little bit vague.
And I totally disagree with what Councilmember Khalid said. I definitely want to see Old National I want to see quality development on national. The problem I have, and I've been quiet, but it's the lack of transparency. We have not seen the rendering. We don't even know what the value of the property that we're asking to turn over to the development authority is. And so, you know, we all are going to be held accountable for what we do. And at the end of the day, it's a lack of transparency. We don't have the value of the property. We have not seen the rendering. We have nothing, and the council is being asked to turn over parcels of land that taxpayers own.
To you.
Ms. Rao, go ahead.
Thank you. I think everybody made a lot of important points, but, you know, this is the first time that we are dealing with conveyance of property over to the development authority. And I think we need to have at least the same level of standard we would have as it relates to what we would even see in the zoning package. One of the things that I heard the developer talk about is a hotel at a minimum being 12 stories. 20 being ideal, and we already know our zoning. It's just a lot of unanswered questions for me at this point. And so, again, I don't feel like we have all the information or enough of it.
Okay, I'm going to say one thing, and I'm going to Mr. Baker. I got you. And I got to speak to Mr. Khalid. I spent most of my active life on Old National Highway. When there was nothing, then there was something, there was nothing again. So I take the issue that I'm trying to stop anything from going on National Highway. And I just take issue with that. I want to make that clear. Nobody has more experience on Old National than William Bill Edwards sitting on this table. Nobody. All right, Mr. Baker?
I just think that we should, like, we wouldn't even be here if we practiced the same transparency on all of our other projects. If we really took the time to practice the same amount of transparency that we're requesting and that we're doing with this project, we wouldn't have a special call meeting tonight.
Facts.
I yield to Councilwoman Gilliard.
I just want to say I was at the Development Authority meeting last night. It was the first time I'd gone to one of their meetings and I was really impressed. But I want to make this point. When the developer talked about the hotel being from 12 to 15 stories, someone said, well, what about the airplanes? Are you going to be able to build that high? And he said, we will adjust the height as we need to. So in other words, it doesn't necessarily have to be that high. It might only be 4 stories. Maybe that's the height because of the planes or whatever. They're amenable to making that change. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. And this is a $350 million project. And not only that, they are also doing a project in my district. And so they've been very consistent. One thing that they did say last night, because they didn't want to talk a lot about everything, but they have their financing. So that's pretty good to hear. I don't see anybody else knocking down our doors for not even $1 million or $2 million. We're talking $350 million.
Okay. Go ahead. Well, this is Ms. Willis, and then I'll give Ms. Jackson, and then it's going to be me, and we're going to close out there.
So I'm not knocking any council member for advocating for quality development in their district. I'm not. I mean, I had no knowledge of this project, but that's okay because it's not in my district. But when I'm asked to vote on land that the city owns and turn it over to another entity, and I will not have any control over it, then that's when it is appropriate to come before council. This is not land that somebody else owns. This is not land that another company owns. This is land that the city owns. So this does not impact just District 6. It impacts all of us because it's our assets. It's the city of South Fulton assets. So the whole council has to vote on something that we have a lack of knowledge on. And my other question is there a conflict? Is there a conflict between Councilmember Baker being the chair on the development authority who has to execute contracts and sign contracts and him voting today? Should he recuse himself from this vote?
Ms. Jackson?
I'm sorry, she asked a question. Shouldn't we get a legal opinion from our counsel?
Yeah.
Point of information. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's no conflict that I'm aware of. The state statute that authorizes this process allows for a council member to sit. You do have conflict provisions within your charter, but it's a personal financial interest. And he wouldn't fit that definition just based on his involvement with the organization.
So the question is, he's a current council member sitting, but he's also serving as chair. So he's going to have to sign executed contracts. And so that's where I'm saying it may be a conflict, but if you don't feel that there's a conflict, then I'm fine.
All right, Ms. Jackson?
Is that what you're saying?
No, I do not believe that there's a conflict.
Ms. Jackson?
I think most of us, the developers and everyone that has looked at Old National, they have turned their noses down. When I asked the gentleman, I saw them in the hallway, and I said, they were saying they were going to Miss Gilliard's district. And I guess boldly I said, well, you all need to come see Old National. I said, we need some development there too. I did not even realize before I took them on the economic development tour, they had already gone to Old National and began looking. And that's when they said that they were willing to put a development there. This is what we're striving for, and that's all that I have strived for, doing things for the city of South Fulton. Not just for my district, not just for anybody else's district. Everything that I have put in place has been something that has benefited the entire city. So for somebody not to throw their noses down to put $350 million on Old National Highway, that says a lot to me. And it should say a lot to the citizens of the city of South Fulton.
Okay, I'll conclude it out. Mr. Pike, this particular property, does it in any way interfere with the Motherland project?
It's the same area.
Same area?
Can you elaborate what the Motherland project is?
Well, one of the things, to some degree, one thing about economic development, you can tell it, and we name it, we code name it, so that we can go through the process. That's nothing that you can laugh, but Fulton County does, every government does that.
But
You know, because you do not want to, you know.
Just talking about transparency.
Excuse me? This is not a trend that's new. But it's on this, all I want to know if it's on the same property.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I just want to ask. So Mayor, are you saying that there's a development project that's happening in my district that you haven't talked to me about? Because I've never heard the Motherland project before.
There's a development project that is not complete, just conversation in your district.
Thank you. It's good to hear.
Thanks. You just said one thing and then did something.
Okay, let's vote. All in favor?
Can I clarify the motion for the clerk?
Yeah, you can.
We have, hold on one second. We have a motion to approve the IGA with South Fulton Development Authority, providing authority to the city manager, city attorney to further to negotiate.
So I would keep that, but I would make the motion to approve the resolution and accompanying the IGA, because they're two separate documents.
Mr. Clay, Councilmember Clay, do you have any problems with that with what she said to that motion?
The resolution and the accompanying IGA.
All those in favor? All those in favor? That passes 5-2. I was Ms. Hudson, Ms.
No, she's voting no.
Okay, it passes 5-2. Next item.
Next item is council approval of council disciplinary actions.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would like Mr. Walls to come up and I would like to make a presentation. He helped me do this presentation. And Attorney Walker, you represent the city, correct?
That's correct.
And the Development Authority, correct?
That's correct.
And you're the parliamentarian for the Development Authority?
Technically, the chairman would serve that purpose, but I do assist them if they have any issues.
And you also were the one to hire the attorney to investigate this matter. I mean, procure the attorney to investigate this matter, right?
Correct, I did procure an outside attorney.
Okay, so I asked the city if we could allow you to recuse yourself totally because I don't feel that I'm getting an objective, this situation is being handled objectively. And my attorney Tavis Weems, sent you a letter or sent you an email requesting the same thing and you never did respond to him.
Well, I didn't respond to him. I passed the letter over to the attorney that's been procured because he is making all decisions and I don't want to tell Weems something where the attorney is going to be the one who dictates the way that this issue progresses. But it is my understanding that after I referred Mr. Weems' correspondence to the attorney, that the attorney did in fact get in contact with Mr. Weems.
Okay, thank you. I wanted that to be for the record. And I am doing this presentation and I did this in partnership with Mr. Ed Walls. We worked on this together because there was a lot of misinformation put out about the bond deal that was done. There was information put out that there was $7 million steered away from the city. There was information that the city was going to lose $7 million. So I wanted to go through this presentation. And also Mr. Al Nash, the chairman of the Fulton County Development Authority, he's here too. Mr. Mayor, you did allow me to do this, right?
Excuse me.
I didn't realize you were starting this, so I would defer to the attorney who's here. I don't want to.
Excuse me. Let's be clear of what we're doing.
She's not controlling the meeting.
I asked.
Okay. Is this something that we need to be discussing here or back into executive session?
Mr. Morozek?
Good afternoon. My name is John Morozek. I was retained to investigate allegations of misconduct by Councilmember Helen Willis. I believe the question you have, Mr. Mayor, is whether or not this discussion about this matter would occur in public session or in a confidential executive session, as that term is defined by Georgia law. Today is not what your charter labels an investigative hearing pursuant to section 2.16. An investigative hearing pursuant to that section is for the potential removal of a council member. It requires certain things. Today's not the day for it. First of all, there hasn't been 10 days notice. But to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, the decision on whether or not to discuss this in public or confidentially in executive session is the decision of the council. It's constituted as the executive session privilege. And the executive session privilege would apply because it involves the discussion of a potential disciplinary matter against an employee or officer of the city of South Fulton. Being a privilege, the majority of council may waive it pursuant to the campaign accountability case. So to answer your question, it's a matter that the council may discuss and may choose either option, either publicly or in executive session.
Well, I think right now, let's discuss how we want to handle this. I do feel that that there's an accusation that's going to be made, and that a person has the opportunity to face their reasons and say. And if we're going to be out here, I think we should allow them to do that. But it's up to us. I'll take suggestions. Clay, go ahead.
So I do wanna be clear that this is not a hearing. That would happen at a different date. So to use this court terminology where people are facing their accusers and making arguments, no one is here to make any argument for or against removal. The council has yet to even decide if that is a step that we're going to take. I called for a special counsel to be appointed to bring us back a report to see if there was even enough evidence to have a hearing. So in common legal terms, this is more of an indictment hearing than a hearing. We have not charged anyone with anything. We have just called for an investigation, and now we are asking special counsel, Mr. Morozic, to deliver a report of his investigation, of his findings. Now, with all of the talk that we just had about transparency, it would seem curious to me that we would spend an hour talking about a pending development that has not even been actualized in public, and then go back in secret and talk about a development deal that has already been sealed, has already been signed. So I don't know. I think for the benefit of everyone that has come here, for the sake of consistency to the principles of transparency that have been espoused for the last hour, I think that everyone should hear the Morozic report in public.
Okay, Madam Attorney, I'm just simply asking about the procedural process.
If I could defer to Attorney Rose.
If it's not something, all this indictment and stuff, if it's not something that we want to deal with, let him make his report and let's go home. You know, that's fine with me. So is it your understanding on this agenda item that it's strictly about Mr. Morozic giving his report? And to add to that, if there's anything to the contrary, when is that report to be given?
So Mr. Morozic is going to make all the recommendations as to moving forward the schedule. So if I could just defer to him.
Mr. Mayor, may I say something, please?
Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Khalid said that there was no accusation and there was no one accused me of anything. And then there was a letter that he put out last night, and it accused me of colluding with the Economic Development Director. It accused me of trying to change the dynamic of the Development Authority and trying to put you on as chair when you had no desire to be chair of the Development Authority. It also accused me of defying the resolution that Councilmember Gilliard passed by saying that I was not supposed to advocate for any development, and that resolution did not mandate any council member. This letter accused me of a lot of things, and it was shared with the public. And so for him to say that nobody is accusing me of anything, that simply is not correct. I've been accused of steering $7 million of development outside of the city, and his letter outlines all of that.
Okay, I see your hands. I want you to, you understand where I was coming from, right? I'm gonna listen to you and then how we want to handle this and move on.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I indicated earlier, very narrow purpose for my retention. First, let me say you have a wonderful community that's the opposite of in decline. You have great opportunity in this community. You have several options with respect to these allegations of misconduct. At any time, the mayor and council can choose to disband the investigation, dismiss it, and terminate my appointment, and I'll move on. Or you can continue to another hearing, or you can order an investigative hearing pursuant to section 2.16. Those are some of your options. Let me share with you, in the 2 weeks since I was appointed, I've conducted fairly extensive investigation, including review of documents, meeting minutes, written materials. I've spoken with, interviewed all members of council and the mayor, with the exception of Ms. Willis, because she's retained by council per Georgia Bar Rule 4.2. And I've exchanged phone messages with Attorney Weems, and we spoke on the phone, and he was busy today, and he said he'd call me back, and I'm sure he's just getting busy before Thanksgiving. I have reached out to the Development Authority of Fulton County. I requested some public records. I heard back from an attorney indicating that it was necessary for me to make a more formal demand. So I will make that formal demand. The attorney for the Development Authority sent me today, which I shared with council, a summary according to its director of this incident. In addition,
Point of clarity.
Have you voted to hear it?
I'm not going to refer to the specifics in that report. I'm just outlining what I've reviewed.
So for time's sake, can we vote to hear, if we're gonna hear it, you're gonna go through this process, let's just go ahead and vote so we can hear it, because.
Well, I don't believe you'd be,
I'd like to make a motion for you to go ahead and, I guess, disclose the findings that you have of your report.
well, respectfully, Councilmember Gomes, I would decline to reveal all the evidence that I've uncovered due to a doctrine known as the work product privilege. If you do vote to go forward with an investigative hearing, I would be required to do it at that time, but there's an issue of strategy.
So we need to go in executive session.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm just trying to give you an overview.
going back to the agenda. Council approval of council disciplinary action. Does somebody want to make that motion?
I'm gonna start the motion with a question. The question is, do we have enough evidence to proceed with a hearing pursuant to section 2.16?
In my opinion, yes.
Thank you. Then give me your motion.
I'd like to make a motion to proceed to a hearing pursuant to section 2.16.
Second,
Properly moved to second, there's a discussion.
I have discussion.
Ms. Gomes, go ahead, then Mr. Khalid, then Ms.
And let me, with all due respect, let me just note two issues that if you choose to do that, you would need to set a date and you'd need to designate a hearing officer. I would recommend an experienced judge. I can give you several names, but those are two of the things if you want to schedule it for a hearing pursuant to section 2.16.
What's that gonna cost us?
Less than $7 million?
Well, we haven't proved that yet, sir. But, that's good. So, we had you want a point of clarity, right?
I need a point.
Where am I, Mr. Clerk?
Discussion on the motion.
Okay, then I had Ms. Gomes and Mr. Khalid and Ms. Gilda.
So my question is back to, I thought when we had a discussion, it was, we were going to vote to hear whatever report that you have before we would vote to do the investigation or do the public hearing. So are you not providing us with the findings today? Councilmember
Gomes, I can share with you what the issues are. I just don't want to disclose all the evidence. The issue, very simply, is yes or no. This is a decision for the council to be made, sitting as a jury. The investigative officer is not going to make any decisions. I don't make any decisions. I don't make any recommendations. You make these choices. But the issue is, there's two issues. Did Councilmember Willis inappropriately insert herself into the affairs of the City of South Fulton Development Authority? And number two, has Councilmember Willis created a hostile work environment for staff members and members of council? Those are the two issues. And I've investigated those issues, and I found a number of pieces of evidence which are public knowledge. The privilege has been waived because it's on the internet. The Economic Development Summit hearing, which was held on November the 14th at Welcome All. There were statements made by Ms. Willis that tend to prove that it was an interference with the Development Authority. The issue is not whether or not the city of South Fulton lost $7 million, because as Mr. Wall has explained, that's simply conjectural. That was a lost opportunity. The issue is, and this is pursuant to the charter, did Councilmember Willis exceed her authority? And that's the issue. And I think the videos and the public email exchanges and statements made by, for example, Mr. Nash to the media, which is unsworn testimony. And that's the reason for an investigative hearing, to place witnesses under oath to hear what their testimony is. Yeah, I know that the media does a wonderful job, but they're under time pressures. And so there was 2 articles 2 days in a row with conflicting statements by Mr. Nash. So if he's put under oath, then we'll hear what the real story was. But those are some of the pieces of evidence that that could be presented in support of these 2 allegations. And I mentioned to you earlier the executive session privilege. There also is evidence of conduct within previous executive sessions which would prove the point. I can't mention those to you because there's an existing privilege which protects the confidentiality of those communications by this mayor and council in executive session. So that's a second issue that the mayor and council would have to decide, presumably at the beginning of the investigative hearing. Today is not a trial. Today is essentially a pre-trial conference, if you will. There's no crimes that have been alleged. This is more of a pre-trial conference, and the council should decide whether or not it wants to go forward with the trial, and if so, when.
Okay, Mr. Khalid.
All right, so I just want to clarify first with our city clerk. We originally had a work session and meeting scheduled for December the 10th. And then we eliminated that December the 10th meeting. And then we brought back the December 10th regular meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
So we currently just have a regular meeting scheduled for December 10th.
You have a regular and a work session on December 10th. You have both.
We do. Who made the motion for a work session? Because I just remember a motion for a regular meeting.
I would have to, you made the motion, but.
Right, and I just called for a regular meeting and not a work session. Because originally, the meeting was only going to be zoning cases. And then we added zoning cases and a budget amendment because there were a couple of ordinances that required a second reading. So the motion was to have a regular meeting on December 10th.
We're pulling up the minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, in that regard, the URA's bids are coming back on December the 3rd. And I'll be requesting you all to meet sometime after December 3rd to approve the winning bidder.
Okay. So what I would like to do is offer a friendly amendment to Mayor Pro Tem Baker's motion to have the hearing scheduled for 5 p.m. on December 10th. I believe all our calendars are already clear for that because we have a regular meeting scheduled for 7. Limiting time for debate and adding a special, adding a hearing officer to be appointed by our special counsel.
Hearing officer.
Second. I'm okay with that amendment.
What? Discussion.
Who's going to have the hearing officer, and then would there be a selection to choose from? Would you be reducing the nominations for hearing officers?
So my recommendation would be to allow Mrozek and Willis' attorney to work that out.
That's the amendment I just made was for Mr. Morosic to.
And at this time, I'll suggest 3 names. If the
I think that would be
council
great.
would approve these 3 names, and I'll
Right.
certainly confer with Attorney Weems.
I think that's
You can choose a judge from 100 miles away, but
Sure.
the 3 recommendations that I would make are all Fulton County judges, current or,
That's why I'm asking the question, y'all.
Okay.
If you don't want something, then give us about 4 or 5 of them, and you can choose for who you want to be the
okay,
hearing judge.
I could give you, I can give you 4 right off the top of my head.
Don't worry about it. Don't do that. Don't do that yet. But I just think we need a variety of counsel, and that we can choose from that.
Inside 285, outside 285?
No, all we asking for is equity
Yeah, well, the names,
and someone who can have an unbiased opinion of what we need to do.
I haven't
So
spoken to any
it
of
doesn't
these.
matter where you go.
Yeah, I haven't
You
spoken.
got that.
Just point of information, Mr. Mayor, the hearing officer is not going to make any decision on yea or nay. The decision will be made by the council. All that the hearing officer is going to do is hopefully reduce the length of the hearing and make some evidentiary objections. For example, you all mentioned hearsay, that's one of the things.
I understand, that just came from one of my colleagues, so I understand you want to spend that money. But, Mr. Cleese, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Gilliard, and I'm gonna ask for the vote.
I got a question.
I'll let you go and then we'll ask for the vote.
And so let me ask this question. So there is really nothing else that is absolutely necessary at this point except to decide whether we want to move to the next stage, which is to try to get to the truth, which is the meeting on December the 10th, where all the facts and all the procedures will be laid out.
Right.
Pursuant to an investigative hearing.
Okay, Ms. Gomes, and then we'll take the vote.
And we don't have an estimate of how much this will cost? I don't know.
Depends on how long it takes.
No, we're gonna close that.
We spent everything else, so.
All right, let's vote. All those in favor? Ms. Rao?
Yeah.
What? You know,
Yes, to move forward with the hearing.
And we don't have to understand that that's the only option.
So, it's a yes.
That's a yes? Okay. That passes 6-1. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, if I could just ask one last thing. If you could have the clerk of the city to execute, because, Ms. Willis, will you accept service today? Will you?
Can you repeat?
Who's our agent?
Mr. Weems here?
I am here. Clearly, without speaking with my client.
Mr. Weems?
Yes,
With the media?
and I called you back 17 times,
Say order to approve.
I spoke with you this afternoon.
and I called you back
This
3
is not
times.
the place for that. If you're gonna set the thing, you can set it, but we're not hearing that.
Will you accept service for your
Okay.
I'll speak with you afterwards.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Let's vote.
Mr. City Manager?
Let's vote.
Executive session to discuss our real estate issues, Southwest, and you have
Can we do that if it's not?
It's on, your executive session is on.
Is it? Yeah, it is. You want to amend that, Mr. Khalid?
No, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, you made it clear that if it wasn't on the special call agenda, that you didn't think it was appropriate, so I'll let you amend it.
Is it?
Executive session, that's about.
Right, but I'll let you amend it.
But
Because
I don't
have to
see
amend
the
nothing. I don't have to amend
anything, it's already on the agenda, what are you talking about?
Um,
So if you wanna go,
I'd like to make.
I made a motion to
Yeah,
adjourn. and it was
go ahead.
seconded.
So we're not going into executive session?
all right, you made a motion to adjourn, let's take that motion, it's already on the floor. All those in favor?
The city manager said we need to go into executive session.
You can't go to executive session unless it's about the stuff that you're in a special call meeting.
Is that what, that's what
So
your
it
time
would
is?
depend on when the meeting was called, we would have to look at what the topics were. You can, I don't recall if executive session was one of the topics that was called to be put on the agenda,
Okay.
or if the clerk just put it on here. If we can recess for about 5 minutes and allow them to make that determination.
Well, we called for a vote, it was
They
seconded.
called for a vote, they made it, this meeting is adjourned.
Yes.
Do I need to be here with 10? Do I need to be here with 10? I'm going to be in Tennessee, I need to change it.
Towards the about holidays, and I think everything particular product has a payment.